I think we are live. Awesome. Hello, everyone. Earlier tonight, today is a very special day. It's my wife's birthday. So we're going out earlier tonight and we're going to be covering the Project Management Bible. So you should be able to have a look at this video if you're going through a project or change. You've put in place some form of project management office, and you might want to look and see in case that there's anything that you could do with adding into your project management office in order for you to make it more robust. So this will formulate the project plan part of the project management office, and it will show you how everything is interlinked in terms of the business objectives or the client objectives, so the overarching SMART objectives, what you propose to be the project key success factors, then define your project, then break down your project in terms of work breakdown, product breakdown, cost breakdown, and then put into places things like interdependencies, put together some form of program or Gantt chart, and how that reflects then on the project organization, work packages, resource and material schedules, estimates and feasibility, and so on and so forth. We will cover risk as well, and we'll demonstrate where risk management can come into play when we look at governance. But we've covered already how to implement the project management office and embed the governance. So this is setting up the project management office and the project plan with a view to then moving forward to put in place robust risk governance and meeting schedules and so on and so forth. So there are 7 questions that you can ask of any project, no matter what size or complexity. And the 7 questions I've touched on in other lives as well when we've talked about project management and change management. The 7 questions are why, go on these vertically. This will all blend in. It's going to form like an infographic. What? Okay. We're going to cover how. And we're going to cover when. Okay, when. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to ask who is involved. And we're going to ask how much. And then the 7th and final question is where is all of this going to take place? So I talk about the words that can sometimes frighten project managers, and not just project managers, mainly decision makers that want to put something in place and have someone manage a project for them. When you start thinking of millions, billions, thousands, global, international, and putting in place a program of work with a robust project management office and the processes and frameworks that you're able to embed, the numbers and the size and complexity should be able to bounce off the governance and the framework and the processes that you put in place. So yes, they do matter, but not in regards of how the project or program of work is managed. So let's dive straight in. Just going to draw this quick grid. So why, it always starts with why. So in the why, you will have business or client objectives. Okay, get a pen. And then that's the instigator of why the project has started in the first place. And rolled into the business client and overarching objectives is you'll have some form of proposal that it's a chosen or an unchosen change or project, or new delivery of a building or something like that, and propose what the key success factors, what success will look like. So in here you'll have the project proposal. Key success factors. Okay. And then once you've established business client objectives and you've proposed project key success factors as to what's needed in order to contribute towards the client business objectives, you can then put in place, the project definition. So now we're moving from the why into what is going to take place. So then you need to define the project definition. And that rolls into the proposed key success factors. So staying with the what in terms of project definition, we can now start to break down the areas of work that's required in sequence. And that's very important because you need to understand the interdependencies between pieces of work that need to happen before one, which need to finish before one can start. That's called a work breakdown structure. Work breakdown structure. Or WBS. Okay. WBS, and that might have other things branching off for it as well. Okay, and that might have other things branching down for it as well in sequence. Okay, so we're now moving into the how. So from project definition, that goes into work breakdown structure. So from work breakdown structure, you can then put in place a product breakdown structure. So a product breakdown structure looks very similar to this. We'll just draw it as a document right now. So we'll call this the product breakdown structure. So PBS. You'll also have cost breakdown structure. So CBS. And we'll just draw those as documents. Okay. And they will also follow on from the work breakdown and into the product breakdown and cost breakdown. Then what you're able to establish from these, work breakdown, product breakdown, cost breakdown, are the packages of work to define as to what other people are going to deliver. And that will then follow into the who. So we'll come on to that in a second. Once you've established work breakdown in sequence, product breakdown, and cost breakdown, then you can start to look at how this is all going to fit once it's managed with the interdependencies put in place. And it's called network diagrams. With a network diagram, you're able to calculate the critical path and the overall time frame as to how long a sequence of tasks will take, taking into account the other interdependencies of the work that needs to happen that gets to the original piece of work. So all of these work breakdown structures will need to be formed into a network diagram. I've worked on projects where we've had to put in place a work breakdown structure and then go straight to building the Gantt chart and putting in timeframes and everything else, and then being able to calculate which tasks and milestones are on the critical path. For much more complex projects, you do need to look at network diagrams to be able to understand scope, calculate levels of risk in terms of time frame, and the impact of the program in terms of interdependencies, because that then rolls into when you establish dependencies and you want to move something forward quicker, then you need to start thinking then about resources, and then what are the resources going to use in terms of the people or the machinery, then they therefore need more materials that need to be brought forward in terms of the program. So that's why a network diagram is very important to understand not just pieces of work, but also if you're scheduling in terms of your resources, it allows you to understand where in the product, where in the cost, and where in the work can be scheduled accordingly. So we're now moving into the when of the project plan. So network diagrams, I've seen them drawn as circles, I've seen them drawn as squares. Sometimes they look like this. And you'll have a piece of work in there, and you'll have time scales and things like that on there. And they branch out into other pieces of work. Etc. So this is called a network. Okay. So when you've established the network, you can then understand the when and formulate the Gantt chart. Okay, now a Gantt chart, it allows you to see, again, in sequence, but it also allows you to see which tasks overlap. You can put in place your milestones. It allows you to calculate and see the critical path to know which milestones or which pieces of work might put the critical path and other milestones at risk of not completing on time, which may affect financing, which may affect progress of work, and so on and so forth. So it's another way of illustrating and communicating the project's progress, but also communicating the critical path and tasks that need to take place and happen in sequence. So Gantt charts, if you haven't seen them, they'll have an overarching project or program, and you might get a few of these. They'll have bars that run like this, and you might get sort of a milestone there, and they might be linked, and then you might get the next task that can move along, and then you might get the next task which is able to run along in parallel. So if you just look at that simple example, you can see that these tasks for the end of we'll put the end of the project here in a milestone. These tasks are on the critical path. This one is running in parallel, so that gives this task here this amount of scope in order to complete. So if there's an issue with this main task, it's got this amount of time before it starts to impact the critical path. Here, just the way I've drawn it, there isn't any scope unless there is some scope that's been calculated within the timeframes. But that's in essence a Gantt chart. Now, we've established the why. We can put in place the what. We understand how from product and cost and the network diagram, and then into when in terms of the Gantt chart. All right. So who's going to deliver all of this work? So in terms of the business client and objectives, you may have the business organization. Okay. Then you may have a sponsor. And from the sponsor, you might have maybe a senior leadership team. You might have a steering committee to formulate governance and create and make decisions. And then the project lead will manage all of the different work streams which will deliver the work packages which we created here. So all of this is going to link together. The business organization will nominate a sponsor. Or the client organization. Sometimes I've seen a client sponsor a piece of work for another, for a patron of theirs, to kind of provide governance and oversight to something that they want to succeed. So the sponsor then will have SLT or steering. You can have both, of course, because in large organizations you might have a steering committee that reports into a senior leadership team. And then the sponsor oversees the two and is the kind of the ultimate delegated authority, that will provide delegated authority to these teams. Then you'll have the project lead. Then you'll have the work streams. Oops. Okay, so if you were to draw this as a structure, it would look very simple in terms of business org, sponsor being here, then SLT and steering, then the project lead, and then from the project lead, the different work stream leads. And when you embed the governance, you can then put in place weekly meetings to cover work stream leads, then monthly meetings to refer back to the SLT or steering, and then the sponsor may be involved in the monthly meetings, but a project governance review or a quarterly business review for the project sponsor and decisions and things like that. So now we've done the who, what we can do is put in place things like responsibility matrix and establish the team leads, and these will have work packages that can be allocated to them, and they'll have terms of reference as well to explain specifically what it is that they're to deliver, the key project indicators of what they're delivering. There'll be allocated key milestones. You're able then to track your actions, issues, and risks. So maybe in terms of the what, we can add in actions, issues, and risks. Tracking, which again, from here, formulate the work packages, the work stream leads, and the other project organization. First of all, they should be asked what tasks they need to perform in sequence, because they will help create the work breakdown structure to a degree as well. Then when you're able to put those tasks in sequence, you can ask the work stream leads, how long is it going to take for you to complete them, which then puts in place your network and your Gantt charts. Obviously, the work stream leads are the subject matter experts of what it is that they're to deliver, and the terms of reference should reflect the key project indicators and the key success factors of the overall project. So now what we're able to do is ask how much. So we've put in place work packages, roles and responsibilities, terms of reference. We've got our action, issue, and risk tracker mechanism. We put in place we can put in place the governance to say weekly, monthly, quarterly, and then perhaps from the sponsor into the business organization, it ties into a current meeting and a governance meeting. And then how much? So we can then start to think about resources. Resource schedules. Feasibility, or materials, sorry. Material schedules and feasibility as well. Materials requirements. And overall feasibility. Okay. Overall feasibility. So that allows you then to start putting in place things like estimates, contracts, okay, to allow you to govern certain aspects of the project. So now you've got estimates and contracts and overall feasibility. So these again will form into the go. And these will fall into feasibility. So now we've got the making of a project plan. We've asked who will be involved in the project, how much, also when, how, what, and why. We're going to come on to where in a second, where this can take place, but let's start linking everything together. So once you've established the business organization, which will all be already interlinked, you put in place the project team, and then you're able to establish work packages for your work stream leads, which is made up from work breakdown, product breakdown, cost breakdown, create the work packages that are tracked in actions, issues, and risk. These also, product breakdown and cost breakdown, interlink with your resource and material schedules requirements, which are then linked to your feasibility. The Gantt chart also feeds into resource schedule, materials requirement schedule, and your network diagram as well, all feed into materials and resource schedules, because resource scheduling is being able to allocate a specific resource, whether it's a human resource or a piece of machinery, to a certain task for a period of time. And you need to think about throughput and what that resource is capable of doing during that time. If, for example, here, it takes one person to do all of this, then this task has to start when this task ends. The reason for that is because there's interdependencies here, and if there's one person that needs to do this task and it's going to take up 100% of their time, then they need to finish that and do this task before they get onto this task in sequence. So therefore more resources are required for the program. If you need a piece of machinery that performs all three tasks, for example, then again, that piece of machinery is going to be occupied, and this task will have a dependency on this one completed, and so on and so forth. Same with materials, inventory management. How long have you got before this stockpile runs out? And therefore you need to think of inventory to ensure you have spares, redundancy, factor in risk, failure, cause effects analysis, and everything else. So that's why these all feed into some of the big complex projects, and some of change, some of operational excellence, Lean Six Sigma, etc. So that's why this program, this infographic is so diverse, and you should be able to look at this, ask for 7 questions, because I'll show you where the project plan comes in. The project plan, just draw this so I don't no, okay. So project definition. From the project definition, everything that you see here is the project plan. So once you've understood the business and client objectives, you've made a proposal as to what the project will look like in terms of the key success factors, and you've defined a project, then all of this will form the project plan. What needs to happen? Why is more around the initiation and business case element as well, which does have a place in summary within the project plan. But the project plan is where you're able to put in place how everything is going to take place, what will happen, how, when, and how much, and who will be involved. So this line here is the project plan. Okay, so then the other things to interlink as well is also the feasibility and the Gantt chart, and also the network and product breakdown structure, cost breakdown structure, they're all interlinked. And so they all should be created from the project definition. Okay. So let's draw from here up to the project definition, from here up to the project definition, from the Gantt chart, the project definition. So when you watch this back, you'll be able to see how all of these link and tie in together. So they all come down into one another. And that's the project plan. So you'll be able to ask why, what, how, when, how, who, and how much. Now the where can be anywhere. It can be within an organization. It can be somewhere else in the country. The beauty of this is you can have this project plan once established, and you can lift it up and say to a project team in another country, with the right amount of governance and tracking and everything else, this is your project plan now, and it'll be managed in line with the overarching portfolio of projects to meet the proposed key success factors and ultimately meet the client or business objectives. So once you've established the project plan, you're able to kind of bottle it and then move it to another area to be managed in parallel. And so that's why this is so important to get the foundations, the framework, and the processes down and nailed right from the beginning. Whether you see this project that you're facing branching out into multiple different projects and you manage it like a program of work, whether you've managed one project and it's gone very successfully, you then have all of this record and all of these lessons that you've learned that you're able to evaluate. So when you do the next project, you have everything in a framework that interlinks, and you're able to use it in that way as well. So the 7 questions again, folks: why, what, how, when, who, where, and how much. Those 7 questions will set you in good stead always. And this is just how you're able to put it into a framework for a project plan. And again, when you deliver a project, whether it's a construction project, whether it's an extension on your house, whether it's something massive like organic growth from a factory to a new factory somewhere else, whether it's managing a program of work across multiple countries, once you put this framework in place, you'll be able to decide which of these elements will be needed to create your project plan in order to govern it, in order to track resources, track material requirements, ensure that you're hitting the critical path, that milestones are being hit, risks are being managed and mitigated, issues are being treated, and actions are going ahead in accordance with the critical path and the Gantt chart. So there you have it. Feel free to drop a line to me, any questions that you want. How are we doing for time? So we've had roughly 40 minutes. Actually, we haven't. We've had 28 minutes. So again, that's when I talk about the 24-hour PMO, if I'm able to draw this out within 28 minutes and talk to you about it and articulate it, and I have my own toolkit, full project management framework and templates and everything that I've created from scratch, and you know, in order to go into a business of any size, anywhere, any project, I can deliver a project plan, project management office, hand over within 3 working days. And that's why it's called the 24-hour PMO. If you'd like to get in touch, by all means, get in touch. So it's going out on LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, and X. So there's 5 that's going out on. But if you want to get in touch with me, my email is at the top of TheStrategySmith.com. So feel free to drop me a line. I'd love to hear from you and any questions that you have. There's also a Calendly link in my LinkedIn bio. If you want to book a free 15-minute discovery call with me, talk about projects, we'll troubleshoot them together. And if you need any hands-on support, then we can talk about that as well. So have an awesome evening. See you tomorrow.